PDA, VSD asymmetricalization do not develop heart failure till very late, whereas pre-tricuspid ASD develops heart failure even earlier. So in an ASD patient, the PA pressure need not be systemic. It may be subsystemic and patient may still develop heart failure because the septum is intact, because the RV alone faces the load. Whereas he could be there in ASD. And the second sound is the whole key. Single second sound means VSD, split second sound means PDA Eisenmenger, and fixed narrow second sound means ASD. Now this thing also has limitations. You could quote that not every PDA had a normal split second sound, not every VSD had a single second sound, but for all practical purposes, it works this way, and it generally is okay. Generally, PR is a sign of dilated PA, more often seen in PDA, and that PR patient in a PDA could have wide collapsing, wide pulse outside, masquerading as TR. Now, this thing also has limitations. Practical purposes, it works this way, and it generally is okay. Generally, PR is a sign of dilated PA, more often seen in PDA, and that PR patient in a PDA could have wide collapsing, wide pulse outside, masquerading as TR, and that as we discussed. So this is one X-ray which I would like to show you. Can you suspect Eisenmenger on this X-ray? There is no history of increased LRTI in childhood. So what is this? Remember, 10% of Eisenmenger can present with a case first as Eisenmenger. That means they never went through a lowering of PAH in childhood, recurrent heart failure. So that means a persistent fetal circulation could happen in isolated patient about 10%, and therefore they could present first time as an adult, but they are Eisenmenger. So this is such case, persistent fetal circulation sometimes. This is useful in your analysis of history. X-rays can distinguish between VSD, PD, and Eisenmenger and ASD Eisenmenger. Very large dilated PAs with a small aorta and a dilatation at the site of PDA, maybe a calcification. So calcification in PA means Eisenmenger. Calcification in the duct means a patent duct with increased PA pressures and the like. So what are these X-rays showing? So this was a PD patient with the Eisenmenger, but had a telltale evidence of increased pulmonary vasculature. So you could say this PH because of Eisenmenger. Now this is also Sinus patient. Can you notice anything abnormal? There's a right aortic arch. So right aortic arch means with the increased pulmonary blood flow, right aortic arch is truncus unless proved otherwise. This patient was a trunk, but there is no RPA. Usually in a trunk with a right aortic arch, you will have a high fall high from PA. So abnormal PA origin would be generally seen. So remember, right pulmonary right arch with the increased pulmonary blood flow, truncus, and that often comes as an exam case. And patient will have truncal regurgitation, a large heart, which will masquerade as a AR also. And that AR will be in the RV, so that you might have a thrill. Now I can't stop without telling you about lung disease PAH, because on a population level, lung disease is the commonest cause of PAH, and lung disease is so common that we must know something about it. So here are 5-6 important factors about lung disease. Remember, parenchymal lung disease, a lot of restriction is needed. 80% restriction of parenchyma is needed to produce mean PA pressure more than 25 at rest. Up to 50% restriction is needed for increasing PA pressure on exercise. So it is not sufficient to say little bit of aspiration, little bit of LRTA component as cause of PAH. Now, COPD patients, majority of them have a mean PA pressure of 20, but only 3 to 5% have a mean PA pressure of 35 to 40. That means serious PAH is usually not a problem of COPD. Most of them, which we used to call it as pink puffers. PAH progresses in these patients slowly. More PAH is seen in patients with pulmonary fibrosis, or in those cases where there is more of combined pulmonary fibrosis and emphysema. How do you define severe PAH in lung disease? Because we found that lung disease, when they have even mild PAH or moderate PAH, their prognosis is worse. So severe PAH is in patient with a lung disease is defined as mean PA pressure more than 35 and not more than 50 as we normally do. So worst mortality is seen in people with severe PAH and lung disease together. So much so for lung disease. When we put the patient on exercise, a normal person, his VO2 max reaches more than 80%. He should reach target heart rate more than 80%. And his ventilation should not reach. So if the ventilation reaches the target, reaches the highest possible, then it is a lung disease. So if the ventilation is the limiting factor, then it's a lung disease. If the anaerobic threshold comes earlier, then it is also a heart disease. And if the saturation falls, then it may be a lung disease. So when you put a patient of dyspnea with a mixture of things through cardiopulmonary exercise test, I think we should have some basic physiological grounding on this. Unfortunately, we are running out of time and I can't go into details of this. Just broadly remember, if the anaerobic threshold comes early, if the VO2 max is not reached in time, they are signs of heart disease, because generally heart is the limiting organ for exercise. When ventilation becomes limiting for exercise, that means ventilation threshold is reached, it is lung. When there is a desaturation, it is lung. When the PCO2 rises, it is lung. And the variation of the same thing. Okay, what is the cause of PAH in him? This is from 1957 circulation. Very early days when, so obesity can cause cardiomyopathy, reversible restrictive cardiomyopathy. Obesity can cause sleep apnea. Obesity can cause reactive pulmonary vascular disease. Obesity have high output heart failure. And surprisingly, obesity can also give you pre-capillary vascular disease like type 1 PAH. So any of this is possible. And metabolic syndrome and the restrictive heart disease that we just discussed is all applicable. So you can see how complex it can become. Now I have bored you enough. Maybe it's a couple of interesting cases. I'm sure you will like this. And this is important from point of view of real life. And I cannot stop it without telling you this. Now here is a case data earlier on in my career, 25 years ago. So PM mean, this is a VST patient. PM mean 70. We cast him and the TPR was 18. You give oxygen and the TPR fell to 5. Now day in, day out, we see such patients. Because of misunderstanding of oxygen studies, people do not appreciate this, that there was a resting shunt which is small, the PVR is very high. Whenever you have a very plummeted fall in PVR, this is not real. Half of the time it is because you did not calculate the dissolved oxygen. Actually, this is a topic by itself. But just for completing PAH in congenital heart disease, if your baseline PVR is very high and if it plummets with oxygen, you do not get this patient operated thinking of these numbers. These numbers are not real. Because this patient came after VST closure and he was worse off. As you know, Eisenmengers are better than a closed VST if they develop PVR, develop severe pulmonary vascular disease. But having said that, there is another patient, similar PVR at 32, dropped to 5 on oxygen, and we operated on him and he was very well. The difference is that his cath data, this is done elsewhere, his cath data was showing a desaturation which was not there normally. So he was not desaturated at rest, but he developed desaturation in cath data, in cath table, because of hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction, something went wrong. So his ECG was, his cardiomegaly was there, he has LV dilatation on ECG. So he was eminently operable and we did operate and did not mess. So hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction can give you severe PVRI, and that is only one setting where oxygen study can be useful, or a vascular vasoreactivity could be useful. How do we test vasoreactivity in the cath lab? A big question by itself. And I think some other day we can discuss, but just if you have PDA with PH, because everybody is fond of device closures, we put a balloon, we close, see the defect and see the change in the PA pressure. If the PA pressure falls, then we say we should close the PDA. But many of these PDAs could come back with the worsening of PA pressure, and then you close the PDA and you then try to do a pot shunt on him. That will not be good. So there has to be substantial fall in PA. I repeat, there has to be substantial fall in PA pressure to be able to say that this is operable. If the fall in PA pressure is less than 50% of system pressure, you may have a problem at your hand, and you have to take into account many things like the age of the patient, the quantum of shunt, and things like that. So this is not a fully worked out area, but don't be in a hurry to put a device if the PA pressure just falls a little bit. So patient has a PVR of 20, the patient has got a PDA, is 8-year-old, and his PA pressure is 90 with PVR of 26, which on oxygen becomes 19. Could he be ever operable? His aortic saturation is 66. Should he be operated? Have a look again. PA 90, PVRI 26, drop to 19. Just now we said resting PVR high, we should not operate. And we operated on this patient because he was mitral stenosis also. So when you have a wedge pressure, there is a secondary changes and they are reversible. So any patient with left to right shunt and mitral stenosis is operable if the MS is severe, because the back pressure changes somehow prevent them from developing severe Eisenmenger changes. Not too many cases are like that, but remember, a post-capillary PH has protective effect, and this patient was well. Now lungs are in parallel. So another patient with a PA mean of 95 and FA of 85, should we operate? Now he had a stenosis at the, he had a right pulmonary artery which is stenosed. So pressure in the right lung is normal, pressure in the left lung is high. So in the lungs, as long as you have one normal lung, as long as the PVRI in one lung is normal, if you connect the two, your final PVRI will be normal. So in any case, if you have one normal PVRI, you will have an operable patient. So despite a high PVA pressure, when we connect the two PA, his PA pressure fell and patient was eminently operable. So this is a very rare case, just bringing it out because it is showing you some physiological insights into the lung vasculature. A IPH patient, 30-year-old lady, everything is like IPH. Remember, thromboembolic PH presents just like IPH. There is no thing in the story which you can distinguish the two. Except sometimes you can have stuttering event, sometimes you have a background, reason to think. So this patient had a severe thromboembolic PH, and after a pulmonary endarterectomy, you can see right pulmonary artery got recruited better, left pulmonary artery was also recruited in parts, and the PA pressure did fall, and patient is very much better. So as far as CTE PH is concerned, remember majority of the patient do not give atrial pulmonary embolism. Acute pulmonary embolism leads to CTE PH in less than 5%. Which are these patients where majority of the pulmonary embolism gets cured by itself, gets organized by itself. We thought 5, maybe 10, but why this patient developed CTE PH is not very well known. Very interesting point I would like to bring out here is that in a CTE PH patient, we think that the lung is obstructed or lung is there. Now we open this artery and the vessels here, the vessels distal to obstruction also show vasculopathy. So vessels which are not obstructed get high blood flow and show some kind of vasculopathy. But vessels which are obstructed also show some vasculopathy. So therefore it becomes very difficult to decide which patient will benefit, which patient will not benefit. And this is a matter for serious consideration. Which are the risk factors for CTE-PH? Dysfibrinogenemia, post-splenectomy. Somehow patients who have no spleen tend to get into CTE-PH, tend to get into PH also. But protein C, protein S are not indicator of PEH. Another CTE-PH. Now this patient did not have CTE-PH, but he had a Takayasu arteritis. Takayasu arteritis on a CT can completely masquerade a thromboembolic PH picture because it is an arteritis after all. This patient had a past tuberculosis and had fibrosing mediastinitis. So similar arteritis can masquerade as CTE-PH, remember that. IgG4 disease, nothing is complete nowadays without talking about IgG4. IgG4 related arteritis also can masquerade as CTE-PH, so worth keeping in mind. A patient of PH treated as epilepsy because every night she would throw a seizure. When we did a polysomnography, we recognized that these are episodes of severe hypoxia in a PH patient. So after putting her on home oxygen therapy, these events completely stopped. So sometimes sleep apnea, sleep studies are also part of PH gathering. And finally, a boy with 70 PA pressure, pulmonary contrast echo showing pulmonary fistula, and the patient had a portopulmonary shunt, Abernethy syndrome. I think you all know that whenever the portal blood bypasses the liver and goes into the lung directly, patient can develop hepatopulmonary syndrome, patient can become cyanosed, or patient can develop PH. And should you be able to close this fistulae or able to treat them, the PH can regress. Now all of them are not treatable, and this is a matter for refined reading. Such patients, when they don't get portal blood into the lungs, they also develop hepatocellular nodules and hepatic carcinomas. So mind a patient of liver disease and think for PH in them. Now, should you have a normal liver function test, but a raised ammonia, a patient who has encephalopathy history, think of Abernethy syndrome, think of portosystemic bypass. And you have an IPH-like patient, but he had ground glass opacities on CT and he is rapidly deteriorating. His DLCO is very low, 30-40% of normal. So think of a CT X-ray like that in a PH patient. There is pulmonary venous hypertension. So PVOD patient. So what is the wedge pressure in a PVOD patient? Once the patient has got a pulmonary venous obstruction, the wedge pressure is also normal, contrary to popular belief, because the veins get occluded. So if you take them on cath table, you find a normal wedge pressure, but they have a PVH on X-rays on CT, they have septal lines, they have a lymphadenopathy on the septum, and they have ground glass appearances. And the two disorders which are very similar to each other, veno-occlusive disease and a capillary hemangiomatosis, they are not for a pulmonary vasodilator therapy. They deteriorate after pulmonary vasodilator therapy and they have a very poor prognosis. Now we talk of pulmonary hypertension, pulmonary pressures everywhere, but currently people are moving on that beyond pressures, it is the compliance of the pulmonary vasculature, which is also a factor for RV function. So nowadays there is a talk of pulmonary compliance beyond pulmonary pressures. And how do we measure compliance? It is very easy. You have a pulmonary blood flow, total pulmonary blood flow divided by heart rate. That means each beat is contributing so much of pulmonary blood flow, so much of pulmonary flow to the lungs. Now each pulmonary stroke volume divided by pulse pressure. Systolic stroke volume of the lung, of the beat divided by pulse pressure. This is giving an idea of how compliant is the vasculature in general sense. And it is also correlating with the RV function. So it is a measure of RV afterload beyond pressure. Just keep that in mind, and we will hear more about this in coming times. I think I'm done. So we have not talked about hypertension, kidney disease. So just as a recap, if you have a boy with normal liver function but raised ammonia and PAH, you will think of abnormality malformation. If we have bruit over the lungs, we will think of CTE-PH, also peripheral pulmonary stenosis congenital. You have worsening with pulmonary vasodilators, we will think of pulmonary vascular disease or capillary pulmonary hemangiomatosis. Newborn with persistent hypertension, mother was taking SSRI, cause of PPHN. Protein C deficiency can give you acute pulmonary embolism, but not CTE-PH. Episodic joint pains, sickle cell disease, had missing pulses, Takayasu causing PH. Patient had splenectomies, could be having any type of PH, maybe CTE-PH, maybe a primary pulmonary hypertension, maybe a liver disease. Native Highlanders, living in high altitude, chronic mountain sickness, subacute mountain sickness, etc., etc. Thank you for bearing with all this. I have finished. Thank you. Questions?